everybody. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I would be doing a lot better if I didn't have to do this. Watch this. Ready? I want to show you a trick. Ready? Watch this. I want to show you a trick. Ready? Okay, hold on. Get ready. Hey, everybody. I hit record now. How are you doing, Nicole?
I am doing great. How are you today? You seem like you're having a day.
I'm having a day. It's been a day. The day is still happening, and it's a day.
But it's going to be a better day because we have a great guest on the show, so I'm excited.
I am so excited for our guest today. But first, go ahead.
Oh, wherever you are watching this show, whether it be YouTube or Twitch or Twitter or Facebook or on the TV app, be sure to leave your comments in the chat because we can see all of them. Leave your questions in the chat so we can ask them of Joel. And be sure to share the show. Tell your friends and neighbors. Go open a window and yell it outside. Say, watch Hello Friends right now. That's your mission.
This show will also be available on all your favorite podcast providers in a day or so. So if you're watching on Spotify, Apple Podcast, I wanted to say Hulu, but that's not what I mean. I feel like this is really
Spotify,
Stitcher, all of those places. Make sure you give them a 5-star rating and a nice review. We really appreciate it. It is a great way to help support the shows. And of course, hello to our TV Co fam. We see you guys all in there watching. But now, Nicole, before we get to our guest, I feel like we have to tease our guest.
Ooh,
I feel like we have to tease the viewers about our guest. I mean, we can tease them if you want, but here's what I'm saying. I want to know how you, Nicole, have prepared for this show, because as many people know, Nicole, the last season of Big Brother Canada is the first season of Big Brother Canada you watched.
Yes.
So that's all I have to say. I'm just trying to win brownie points early.
I know, I see this. You're throwing me under the bus.
I'm throwing you right under that bus to say,
what I will say to that is, although this was the first season of Big Brother that I watched, when it comes to the real world, Joel is one of the first people from BB Canada that I've interacted with, so I know him as Joel the person, not Joel the BB player, and that means more.
Well, now you've done it, Nicole. Now you've ruined the tease.
Oh, sorry.
In that case, I will let you go ahead and introduce our amazing guest for today, Nicole.
Yes, my friends, I am so excited to announce somebody who I am proud to call a friend, somebody I chat with often, and I can't wait to hear all of his insights on, especially this season of Big Brother, because, you know, there's a lot going on. Somebody who we all love. It is the, ready for this, jovial, Joel.
Joel, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. It's great to chat with you. Eric, it's great to reconnect with you. I know I was on your show a long time ago when I was off of BB Can 4. And Nicole, we've chatted lots online. It's good to finally see your face and have a real life person-to-person conversation.
I know, we're actually meeting. It's not like in person, but it's kind of in person, which is cool.
Absolutely.
It is in person. And I have to say, right before this show, Joel, Nicole decided to stress me out because, you know, I get stressed out. It's so funny. I don't get stressed out when we have well, now this is going to sound bad, but you know what I mean? Like I always say reality people aren't celebrities, but I don't get stressed out when we have celebrities like an Omarosa or a da-da-da-da. I get stressed out when it's people that I consider a friend or people that I like in real life. So I was just so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, Joel's going to be here. It's going to be such a fun show again. Nicole thought it would be funny to call me and 15 minutes before the show and be like, hey, Hubs and I are at Wendy's. You want anything to eat? And I was like, what's wrong with you psychopaths? And she's like, haha, look outside. I'm in your driveway.
It was pretty funny. I thought it was a very well-planned joke.
Yes, that was a very well-planned hysterical joke. Thank you for that.
Which, this is actually funny. This is kind of random, but Tear Bear in the TV Co chat says they're craving White Castle. So Joel, I want to start with which fast food place is your vice, your favorite?
Yes.
You know what? I don't necessarily have a go-to. I kind of have signature meals or sandwiches that I get every single time from specific restaurants. It just kind of comes with whatever cravings I have. If you want to talk about like maybe some best kept secrets or restaurants in Canada that maybe aren't necessarily that familiar other than your typical like Wendy's, A&W's and Subways and whatnot, there's a great place in there's a White Spot, which is a nice little restaurant in Canada. It has lots of locations in Western Canada, and there's a cool retro drive-in sort of like old school McDonald's. If you ever saw that McDonald's movie before they actually like had like places everywhere, there's a place called Peter's Drive-In, which has great milkshakes, fries, and like just basically it's just off of the highway in Alberta. There's one in Calgary, there's one in Red Deer. So that's my favorite road trip one that brings back a lot of memories for me.
That's awesome. I was in Calgary, Canada for like the Cowboys like event.
The Stampede?
Yeah. Oh no, the Stampede. They invited me back to the Stampede, but then like COVID hit. But before that, it was like a meet and greet at the Cowboys like dance hall.
Yeah.
You and Cliff, right?
Me, Cliff, and Kat.
Fun.
Right.
That is fun. Now, I already see questions coming in on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. So here's what I have to say. 100%, we are going to talk Big Brother because you're watching this season, right, Joel?
You know what? To be perfectly honest, I watched it a lot from the very beginning up until about the midpoint when that whole Ian situation transpired. And I mean, we all know the backlash and everything that was talked about with that. So I had lots of conversations with podcasters specifically tied to that because it's something that I obviously, people who know my story on Big Brother Canada know why that situation touched me so deeply. What happened. And so I've kind of watched periodically since that point. I've watched a few full episodes here and there when I've been on some podcasts. I watched the last one that took place on Thursday, the last live one. I've never been a live feeder, so I've been mostly just keeping up to date lately over the last few weeks online. But I'm aware of like the dynamics in the house and who's in what position, who's HOH, veto, all that stuff. So.
Okay, perfect. I mean, well, first, and I want to get into the Ian. I want to get more into your story and let people who may not know of Joel BB for Superstar. I want to get into all of those things, but I just wanted to let people know that because we have a lot of new people, Joel, we never used to stream live everywhere until like a week ago. So now everybody always thinks whenever we go live, like we're doing this BB show and blah, blah, blah. This is the podcast, everyone. Hello and welcome to it. We like to talk about everything. You can ask anything. Now, normally we like to talk about food.
Yes,
we like to talk about funny things. But when we have a guest, we like to learn more about them. But 100%, everyone, keep your questions coming. And now let's get a little bit into that because, well, first I want to say, Joel, I think most people, Ian's situation or not, I feel like left on the midpoint, unfortunately. So
maybe sooner.
You're not alone. Is my first point to make there. But why don't you tell people who may not have seen Big Brother Canada a little bit of what your story was like and what your journey was on that show?
Sure. So, I mean, initially when I first got on, if you remember my first intro package, I was, I think I was they called me a musical theater actor, which was an interesting, so I sang that group number by Rent, which was really weird because it's like, it's a 5-person synonymous song. So it was not necessarily my choice, but they had the say over that. And they were like, okay, you're singing Seasons of Love from Rent. And so I was deemed as kind of like the nerdy person, but not like the science bookworm kind of nerdy person, but like the theater nerd, so to speak, who never had a date, never had a girlfriend, and all this stuff was sort of like the tee up for me. And I feel like early on I was kind of labeled, especially early, as like that underdog person that, like, you know, that was the introvert who needed to come out of his shell and whatnot. From that point, there was a lot that I shared. There was a lot of my personal story, which was shared definitely in the first few weeks of the show. One of which was in my second week there, I shared about how when I was a teenager, I was officially diagnosed, I want to say about the age of 12 or 13, with Tourette syndrome. And so that was, I think, to people who I watched, a big revelation, because, you know, I seem to, like, you know, when I'm interacting and speaking with people, I sound okay. It doesn't appear that there's any issues, but I guess maybe the lesson from that people took away, I hope, was that, you know, you can appear normal on the surface, but that doesn't mean everybody doesn't have other things going on, and people would actually be surprised about how many people actually have that condition and how many people can still go on to great things with that. So that is kind of the reason why I related to Ian, and I've met Ian on a few occasions. So I can definitely understand where he is coming from when he speaks, when he acts. And yeah, I feel like my journey is similar. I knew going into the show that I was going to be like an Ian and a Steve because of how I look on the outside, and I was prepared for that. So I was like them, but couldn't get the comp wins. Otherwise, I could have, like, come away with the victory. But at the end of the day, Nicole knows it's comp wins that you need near the end.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I very much remember your season, and I remember when they were, you know, saying, and I feel like almost I was ignorant to it as well, because I kind of remember it being focused on, like, Joel has Tourette's, and I felt like a lot of us were thinking, I think stereotypically the way movies or shows put that. So like it was, if nothing else, I think your time on Big Brother Canada opened a lot of people's eyes to, you know, what it's like, and that it isn't that, and that it's not necessarily these things that people portray it to be. And that's not to say that it's not a struggle or hard or any of those things, but it's just, it's interesting the way I feel that it's been presented to people over the years versus the reality of what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think you pretty much, like, touched on so many great points there, Eric, about how it's, the way it's perceived, at least my specific condition, is in a way that, you know, all we do is, like, drop the F-bomb every second or third word and just, like, have total complete meltdowns. And don't get me wrong, some people with that condition do have it to that extent, but in reality, it's probably maybe about, I'd say 10% of the population that has it that severely, where they just, like, speak out of turn. And I've met some people since being off the show who have had that, who still have, like, fantastic careers that you would not think people with that condition would have, such as high school principals I've met, you know, there's some professional baseball players who had the condition. Like, I know in the States you guys aren't huge into soccer, but there's a really great goalkeeper former goalkeeper for the American soccer team, who wrote a book about his time and some of his rituals and OCD stuff. So basically, there's a lot of other associated conditions that come with it that is a lot more than just, you know, screaming and yelling and dropping the F-bomb.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. And what I love too, and I find so amazing, because obviously you spread awareness while you're on Big Brother Canada, but you also continue to do so, like, on your social media platforms, on your TikTok. You do a lot of videos like, this is what it looks like. You know, you're educating people, and that's, like, absolutely phenomenal to see.
It is.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't. There's an interesting sports piece I remember watching a few months ago about, on ESPN, about the Special Olympics, and it talked about how the people with disabilities, and they are, you know, they're not a visible minority, but they're still technically a minority. Right. How their voices sometimes aren't necessarily the ones that are heard the loudest. Every minority deserves a voice, and it's great that there are so many movements out there, but I feel sometimes, in my opinion, the voice of people with disabilities is not necessarily the one that is heard the most, or heard as much as it should be, maybe.
I completely agree with that. I mean, having a husband who's disabled and, you know, things like that, I know that it is often people like them who are forgotten. However, even more so, I think people with, you know, that are suffering from mental illnesses of some sort often are the worst overlooked, because if you are not in a wheelchair, if your leg is not in a cast, if you don't have a machine hooked up to you, if people can't see the thing that's wrong with you, then they tend not to believe it or tend to just push it aside. One of the best things a therapist ever said to me, and not like it works because I have a horrible imagination, but she was like, whenever you're having conversations with people, you should just imagine them like bandaged head to toe, like in a full body cast when you're talking to them, because everyone's going through things. Everyone is hurt or broken or having an issue in some way, even if they don't realize it.
And I think in that sense too, it kind of also relates, you know, because I worked with like, you know, students and whatnot, the whole being on the autism spectrum, people have this misconception of, oh, you have autism. Ooh, it must be really severe. And no, it's a spectrum for a reason. There's highly functioning. Some of it's just social components, just social interaction. And something I do want to pivot to is we were talking about earlier with the whole Ian situation in the All-Star House, where for those of you listening that maybe aren't aware of it, we saw a couple of the All-Star House guests in a room without Ian. Ian is a man who was on the autism spectrum, and Memphis was somebody who was imitating him and saying, he's weird. Why does he act like that? It's creepy. It's strange. And he proceeded to imitate the rocking and whatnot. And the other people in the room, one of whom is Ian's good friend, Nicole F., were laughing at it, thinking it was the funniest thing, this funny reenactment of a fellow house guest, a friend. And I guess I just want to hear you, Joel, like speak about that, like that entire situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating and disappointing on so many levels, and I'll try to like summarize it as best I can. But basically, the most disappointing thing for me when I initially saw it was that the like unloading on Ian came from a place that it just seemed kind of random, you know, kind of like a kid who just decides he's going to tease another kid, but they're like, the kid didn't do anything. So it is disappointing for me that not only are these all grown-ups that are unloading this, but it didn't come from a place of like, you know, it wasn't as if Ian was HOH and nominated them. And then I could sort of understand, you know, we vent our frustrations when we're in there. The intensity of the situation gets to us. And I could sort of understand it if it was like, say, Ian was HOH, he put up Memphis and Christmas or something like that. Then they might be like, oh, that F and this, and they might go off and say some stuff that they regret in the heat of the moment, right? This didn't appear to be like a heat of the moment situation. So that's number one, is that it was just brought on. It felt like for the sake of like, hey, I'm bored. Let's like talk about somebody and let's like degrade somebody like that. So there's that. Secondly is these are returning house guests. All of them are returning house guests, and they are well aware of the repercussions that can come from just one misplaced comment and whatnot. So they should have more self-awareness about that. They should understand that everything they say and do is going to be captured on live feeders. There are people out there that's all they do is they try to wait for you to screw up for one reason or another. So that's another thing they should be aware of. These are grown-ups. These are Memphis in particular, I think, is a father. He has one kid,
he has a son.
Kids?
Yep.
Yeah, he has a son. Right. So that's another thing, is like setting an example for your kid as well. And your kid's going to see that. And no doubt it's was probably like brought to him by lots of other kids at his school, perhaps. So that has to take its toll on that particular kid. And yeah, it was just wrong on a variety of different levels. But I will say, and I never thought about this until I was on Kat's podcast, Kat Dunn, and had an interesting conversation. She talked about how in Big Brother, and it's interesting, how people are united by, like, just unloading on somebody else. Like that's sort of like becomes a bond. It's unfortunate, but it's in life, and especially in Big Brother, something like just like ganging up on one person. When one person initiates it, people fall on board sometimes because they just want to be united by something, because they don't want to feel on the outs. And I feel all those things that I just alluded to kind of combined to what was a very unfortunate situation.
I agree 100%. I think the one thing that, like, for me really annoyed me, having been in that house, is when I first got the call to return, I did have a lot of reservations, and my sisters and I discussed it a lot, and my sisters were like, we don't want you to have another experience that you had last season with a group of people that say insensitive things, that get together and think it's funny to, talk about one person. And my reasoning, like you were saying, Joel, was, they're all stars. They've been through it. They know what's appropriate to say, especially when they're being watched. Like, they're cognizant of the outside world. So for me, watching at home, that was the more frustrating part, where, like, A, you're ignorant enough to say it, and B, you've been through this. You know how this is going to be seen. You know it is being seen. How do you, and not that you shouldn't do something because you have a fear of being watched, but how do you think it's going to be okay, but then also be like, well, I know this is being watched, but it's fine. Like, I just don't understand how that didn't cross their minds of, like, yeah, we should not be doing this right now. So that was one of the most frustrating, like, points for me.
I want to just throw back really quickly before I get into something. I want to throw back to Melanie over in the TV code chat, who said, in regards to not understanding the people around you, she said, I have a shirt that says, I don't look sick and you don't look stupid. So looks can be deceiving. So I thought that was funny. And that made me, I also get in trouble on the when we do the video shows, because like I'm listening, but I'm also reading chat, and then somebody says something funny, and then it seems like, oh, why are we laughing at that part? No, I just read it, and I thought it was funny, Melanie, so I needed to share it. Now look,
no, but that's a very valid point, because like, looking at the chat, JP is saying Ian is 100% times more comfortable in his skin than Memphis, and I think that's what it goes back to, is confidence. Like, Memphis literally walked in that room, and his first statement was, what's with Ian? He's acting weird. He's all confident saying hello to people. And it's that moment of, like, why can't somebody like Ian be confident? Why are you questioning that? And you could tell that Memphis is very intimidated by somebody like Ian because of that level of confidence. So I agree with JP, like, so much. I think a lot of it is, wait, he's not like this big buff guy. Why is he so confident? When obviously Memphis, I think, has some insecurities.
I mean, I think Memphis literally is the textbook example of insecurity, where I attack the thing that I'm not familiar with and I don't understand and I'm not comfortable. I think that's pretty much like Memphis's whole personality, is that. But
yes,
to go back to that conversation, and the conversations that have been, or I've seen being had around it. Number one, like you said, Joel, yes, there is a thing on Big Brother, and it doesn't mean that it's an excuse, but it is something that I even said this to Nicole on her season, when that door got slammed in her face and Tommy stood up and cheered in those room full of people, and everybody was very much like, Nicole should hate Tommy and this, that, and I'm like, what do you want these people to do? There is only one winner in this game.
Yep.
You are in a room with the majority of people, or in Ian's case, you're in a room with the people that are in power often.
Protecting you.
I mean, all of them are really like that. Yeah. The people involved in this, Danny, Nicole, and Memphis, really, we probably couldn't make that argument because they are the people controlling the game. But my point is, the game is a social game. So if in Nicole's situation, you're watching a door get shut in her face, your choice is, that's ridiculous, I'm not taking part of this, and you go walk out with Nicole, then you're
a target.
Then you're probably the target. So you're obviously going to stand up and cheer. And here's the thing, and I cannot believe that I'm just throwing this out as an option. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I understand this is coming from me, because I feel like I feel like Nicole Frenzel got a lot of backlash. She lost her sponsorships because of this. Obviously, people are upset about this. But there is part of me that feels like Memphis said it all. Danny kind of interjected like one or two things. And then all Nicole really did was laugh. And I don't mean to minimize it, and all she did was laugh. I just know that for me, when I've been in similar situations where I feel insecure and people are doing things that I'm uncomfortable with, like I will be like, ha ha ha, like, yeah, like I'm laughing along, like almost like it's nervous, like, yeah, oh, I don't like this, ha ha ha, laughing.
But I would argue there's a difference between nervous laughter and belly laughing. Like, I would argue Christmas was nervous laughing. Cody was nervous laughing. Nicole was like, it was the funniest joke she's ever heard in her life. And I think that's where it kind of crossed the line.
Well, that's my question. So, because I know that this is the defense, I'm more being shady if I was trying not to lead you guys anywhere, but you got it. So my question was, there are people who will say that's why she was laughing. She was laughing because she was nervous and she didn't know what to do. But yeah, it did seem more like a jovial, ha ha ha, I'm laughing right along with it. So then it goes back to, is this game? Is this how she really feels? It's hard when you watch, the edits that some fans have done, where you do see her say some stuff like, I have to act more upset, or I have to, make sure that I cry and do this and do that because I don't want America not to like me, or they're going to take this a wrong way. It's hard. I don't know how anybody can defend any of the things that happened in that room, but my only last not argument, again, I am not arguing for them. I am just raising the questions that I know people are gonna that I've seen people say in their defense. Like you said, Joel, they should know better. They know the live feeds are on. They know the way these things can ruin them in the real world. So if that's the case and they are aware of it, but they are still doing it, does that mean that they are not good people? Or does that mean that they don't think what they're doing is actually that bad? And if that's the case, do we educate them and forgive them? You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't imagine anyone, and look, everyone knows I, wasn't a huge Nicole Frenzel fan. I'll even say for people that I can't stand in that have played this game, I can't imagine anyone going into that house and knowing the live feeds are on and just saying something racist, something homophobic, and then to continue it in a conversation and keep it going. They have to know it's going to destroy them in the outside world. So then I guess just for me, my question goes back to, do they just not realize it's that bad?
Yeah, I think probably, Eric, I mean, I don't like to be the person that gets inside people's heads and assumes what exactly they think and what they're doing. But it seems to me, I don't believe that any of those people are horrible people and are like to the point where they're just like mean and nasty by nature. Obviously the game brings out the worst in a lot of people. But yeah, I honestly, I think it's really just a lack of awareness, and a lot of stuff escapes. I can't tell you how many times for me, I get people just being like, why is Joel not looking me in the eyes? Why is Joel like, why did Joel just say this random comment or things like that? And that's another thing, is that there's just a lack of understanding, I feel like. And sometimes somebody sharing something like Ian did at the beginning of the season, that he was on the autism spectrum, because he shared that fairly early on while you were still in there, I think, Nicole.
Yep.
That sometimes escapes people, and it becomes a quick little, oh, I didn't realize that, and then 2 seconds later. So they're probably the likes of Memphis and Christmas may not be necessarily Memphis, Christmas, Danny and them might not necessarily have people like that in their lives. So perhaps they're not exactly like sure how to handle somebody like that. And they just think it's somebody weird. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think bottom line, it's a lack of education and a lack of awareness that it's possible. Maybe it's just some uncontrollable thing, whether it's a physical thing or something somebody says.
So is it, so then I guess let me ask it, and or not, let me ask this question, I guess then. Do you feel, I mean, I feel like I've said how I feel about this, but do you feel, Joel, that it is the responsibility of the show to then take action on this? Like, we know in Big Brother, it is, you do not let these people know one thing from the outside world. Now, whether production and a DR let something slip, or, it is the death of a family member, when a moment like this happens on the show, do you think that it should then be something that makes the air, that starts a dialogue, that starts a conversation?
I think that's a very hard thing to answer, because on one hand, they're probably thinking we want to protect Ian and Ian's family, and we don't want something like that, because there might be some immature kids that will unload and just like make the situation worse. So I can understand from that perspective. If it was me, I wouldn't have had a problem, because I went through some of that on my season with some house guests making fun of me. So if production would have come to me and said, hey, Joel, do you mind are you okay with us airing anything? I'd be like, absolutely. But that's just me. I don't know if Ian would feel comfortable with that. So there's that angle. For the teachable moment, it's definitely an easy teachable moment that could make the live show. I still think that there was a lot of exposure on this, though, with TMZ, I saw did a thing initially, then Oprah Magazine. So there was a lot of exposure to it for people that don't even watch the live feed. Yeah. So I was happy with how much they did that. In terms of production, letting somebody else know, I mean, if they don't think it's going to really like upset the game, I think in this situation, it might not have been a bad thing to just like bring the house guests aside, because everybody knew each other going in there, or like, so if it's brand new house guests, I can see them maybe wanting to keep it a little bit more hush hush. But in this situation, I don't think it was a bad thing to like sit them down or say like, hey guys, this kind of stuff is not acceptable, because they've done that before where, if somebody's using too much foul language, they'll warn them and they'll be like, all right, like, take it easy on this. Can you please watch it with this? And you're aware of this and whatnot. So I think in this situation, there could have been more that production could have done that would have not necessarily upset the game or like, like unfairly. So
especially when, how can I word this? Like, we got bias training prior to entering the house. I'm pretty sure that's public knowledge. I think going back to what you were saying, so much of it is just not being aware and educated and not knowing, and obviously don't quote me, and you can look at the live feeds, but in the conversation Ian had with all of us about being on the spectrum, I believe it was Enzo who was like, wait, really? What do they do for that? What can they do to help you? And Enzo's reaction, it was a very genuine reaction, but I could tell he thought of it almost as like oh my gosh, it's like a terminal sickness. How can we cure you? And that's not something to like judge Enzo for. That's not anything to laugh at him for. Like, and again, don't quote me, you have to look at the feeds, but like it comes down to education and bringing more awareness to it. And that's why I would like if it became a segment both for the house guests and for the viewer at home, or like those young kids watching, they're like, oh, a kid in my class is on the spectrum. So I think we need to do that. And one thing I do want to ask you, because Lawson Cruz in the TV Co chat is asking it, and it's kind of in the same thread. He says, Joel, I think BB seems to be ahead of the curve when it comes to diversity. What can the US counterpart do to be up to speed on it? I think you guys are nicer people.
No, I think it's tricky because of the state of the world right now, and because of how big the Black Lives Matter thing was over the summer and still is nowadays. I know there was like deep-seated issues between like Dave Vaughn and when she didn't want to evict David over you. I feel like there was, so it's a touchy. What can they do differently? I don't know, except just like educate the other house guests, and if there's behavior that is common knowledge with everybody in the house and production knows that because they're watching all the cameras the whole time, to just communicate with the other producers and say like, okay, this is what's being said. Every single person in the house knows this. It's not going to affect the game if we talk to them about this. So in situations like that, yes. And it's a good point about Big Brother Canada, like being ahead of the curve, because I feel like last season, perhaps production in Big Brother Canada wanted to make a statement to not tolerate, with the ejection of 2 house guests, they did not want to tolerate that kind of behavior. So hopefully that serves as like a catalyst to maybe have more strict rules in place for that kind of behavior, because the game gets the better of us, and being angry and venting and stuff like that is a part of it. But I still feel like as human beings, we are always in control of our emotions. And I don't know. I don't remember ever coming close to insulting or getting really pissed with somebody and just like unloading on them. So I think that's too much of a cop out with the heat of the moment stuff. So hopefully what happened last season in BB Can and what's been going on this season can help.
And did you watch that season, like not in full, up until it was canceled?
I did. Yeah. And I was one of the few that was actually, I know a lot of people were up in arms and disappointed with the ejections. I was 100%, I didn't have a problem with the ejections of both Kyle and Jamar.
I mean, here's, it's kind of like 2 different conversations, because I do agree. Sure. I think that Big Brother Canada is definitely ahead of its time. And I also feel like, we saw Ika speak out about the way that she was treated, and then that led to, other things. And now Arissa is also host and executive producer, and she's saying that at least 50% of the cast are going to be this diverse cast. I don't even see our Big Brother doing that. And maybe this is just cynical New York Eric, and I hope that I'm wrong. I don't think our Big Brother is going to focus as much on diversity, or specifically, diversity of African American people within the game going forward. Because I think, in Big Brother, gay people are often seen as the sidekick. So not to compare the 2 things, because I know they are completely 2 totally separate issues. But one of the things that, Devon would say is, I go into that game when I play alone as, a Black woman, and I am alone by myself, and I'm trying to squeeze into these groups that I can't get into because I'm so different. And I would argue it's like that for the one gay person on the show as well. And and then when you factor in people with now disabilities, somebody like Ian, he now has that thing. So I feel like this season of Big Brother, came off of last season, and it seems like their goal is to be like, look, we're anti-racism this season. See how we're showing this Devon fight? See how we're showing this thing? They were airing conversations they would have never aired before this season. And I want to believe that they're going to keep that going forward. And I
think they will.
that they're going to keep it going forward. We will see. We will see. And then I will hope that in seeing if that goes one step further, that it also goes one step further to include those conversations about Ian. No, maybe we didn't need to put that specific thing that happened to Ian on the air, but for me, and if Ian would have agreed, I think we should have also had more than the 1 minute segment about Ian telling it to Nicole and Kaser and them as well. I think we should have heard more about Kevin and his boyfriend. Fiance, sorry. Husband. Why am I going through this stage? Look, I just put Kevin through the entire stages of his relationship. But I'm saying I think they need to focus more on, let's learn about the diversity of all of these people. You have time to do it. Look at how great it was that we weren't focusing on showmances. Take the showmance part out, focus more on the, individual people and their stories.
Unless I'm on the season again, in which case we will allow the showmance to happen.
Oh, sure.
Eric, you actually make a great point, and that's something that I've noticed in watching Big Brother US for as long as I have, is that it seems to me from about season 15 or 16 or so, they kind of turned away from all of the personal stories with each person. Like they don't do as much of like go back and see the family and like let's hear what they have to say, or like you rarely see the people like bawling with their HOH letters or any of those personal moments. So I love those moments. And that's a reason why I got into Big Brother, not only for the gameplay factor, but because contrary to some other competition shows like Amazing Race and whatnot, which only focuses strictly on competition, what I've always loved about Big Brother is you get an inside look on each person, not only the player, but the individual. And I think that US has definitely seems to have gotten away from them through the last few years.
That's very true. We lost a lot of like the humanizing. Hey, this is my letter. These are my photos. Let's play a food competition where we're just laughing, trying to get food for the week. It got rid of a lot of the more fun, like just learn about people as people. Like too much of it is like game.
Well, I will just we don't have to put a pin in it, but I think one of the main things that I also want to say, because we, have seen a lot of this postseason and it's been presented to us in a way, or I would say, more specifically with Nicole and what she went through in the house. And then to come out and apologize and those types of things. What is the correct way, that we think people should respond to now a Danny, a Memphis, a Nicole? In other words, do we forgive them if they sincerely apologize and are showing their willingness to learn and educate themselves? Or are we like, no, that's it. There are no second, chances. You're gone. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. I almost feel bad that we're in a culture where it's almost like people are not encouraged to make a mistake. Or we shouldn't be encouraged to make a mistake, but people can't make a mistake, learn and grow from it. And my fear is when we nail everyone to the cross and destroy them for everything, it's not going to make people want to admit when they're wrong or want to learn. My fear is on a psychological level, it's going to make people be better at it. They're just going to be like, well, I'm not going to get caught next time, or I'm going to do it this way. That's my fear. But go ahead, Joel. What do you want to say?
Yeah, you know what, Eric? I feel like, and it's something that I'm learning right now because I'm taking some online classes in educational assistance. I've been working as a drama instructor, so I deal with a variety of different kids every single day. I feel like it's in the way that it is brought to the attention of Memphis, of Danny, of Nicole, in a way that is non-confrontational, in a way that says, guys, there was some stuff that was controversial. Let's show you it, and then see their responses. Hopefully their responses are, I am very sorry, period. Not, I am very sorry, but there was the heat of the moment this. Because anytime you add, and Nicole, you probably learned this when you were working in education as well, is anytime you say the word but to anything, it completely like evaporates everything you just said. Any of the positive stuff is gone when you add that. So you say, Ian, I'm sorry. That's it. There's nothing.
And like my sister always says too.
Yeah.
My sister always says, it's not, I'm sorry if I offended anybody. I'm sorry if I hurt you. It's sorry that I did. I'm sorry that. And I think, Eric, what you were asking, what my answer would be is you have to gauge it by the other people that have lived with these people, by the people that are in their life, in their personal realm. So I think a lot of how we all are going to react to Nicole and Danny and Memphis is how Ian does. If they apologize and Ian says, wow, they did genuinely apologize, I know them as people, we're beyond that, we're past that, then I think a lot of us would be like, oh, okay. Because it's very easy from afar to be like, nope, I still don't like you about something you did 6 seasons ago, last season. But for the people that are in the realm and in these people's lives, if you know somebody, you know them. So for instance, when people come at me and say, nope, Tommy jumped up and down that HOH room, you should not like him. Yes, but you have to realize I know Tommy in real life, and we've had so many conversations about it, and we've gotten past it. So if I can get past it, you can get past it. So I think a lot of it is going to be in regard to like how Ian receives it, how they, speak about it post-season, and we get to see all that, and also how they all react to each other,
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes sense. And I also think it's hysterical that you think people are going to go, oh, those two worked it out. Then I'm not going to be crazy on Twitter anymore.
That's what's insane. Like I get it. Like as a fan of the show, I get you get
they
stuck
don't care
in those moments because those episodes are timeless. But life continues beyond those episodes. Life continues beyond the seasons. There's so much more than Joel on this season of BB Canada. You are you in the real world years later. And that's what people lose sight of, I feel, anyway.
I mean, this will always be the example for me. And I know that people don't necessarily even agree with me on this. I truly feel everything that happens in the game is game. Even the things that are going to affect them in the real world, it's still game, because in this moment, they're in a social game trying to win $500,000 for their family, their future, their life. So like, whether we like it or not, whether there's consequences outside the game for it or not, it still, to me, is a scenario they would not be in if they were not playing this game. So that's which is why I always want to give people a second chance in the real world, and I always will. Here's the difference. Look at someone like Cody Nicholson. He said horrific homophobic things in the house, against trans people, against gay people. When he came out of the house, people said to him, you said these things in the house. He also said about wanting to, I forget, something about Ferguson. I don't want to say it wrong, but it wasn't good, is the point. And the point is, though, he came out and was like, I'm not apologizing. I said what I said, and that's it. So for me, that is not someone I will have on a show. That is not someone I will forgive for saying those things. But when somebody comes out and then says, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize it, I am totally one to forgive them instantly. But I then also need to see these steps being taken. Because if you're apologizing for it again a month later, 2 months later, your people are still, so then your apology was just lip service and it didn't matter. But so I guess what I'm saying is, for me, and I don't think it'll happen, but if Memphis apologizes, sure, I think he has a lot more to apologize for. If Nicole apologizes for it, if Danny apologizes for it, 100%. And then I see them move forward and take steps to do it, to change, then yes, I would 100% forgive them. I honestly think it's a great thing, like a blessing in disguise for Nicole Frenzel of sorts. You lost your sponsors. I think the best thing you can do when you come out of this game is link up with your buddy Ian and start raising awareness for, the things that are affecting Ian and Ian's life. Raise money for those charities. Spread that word. Take the negative thing that you were uneducated about and didn't understand and use that situation to help other people. And, not to make it about Nicole, but I feel like very much in a way that this Nicole did when she got out of the house.
Aw. What I do want to do, because I'm feeling very heavy.
Yes, we can switch it up now.
I want to lighten it, because Joel, you said you watched BB Canada this season. I want to know who were you rooting for, or who do you think would have won? Who do you think would have been like? Do they do Canada's favorite player
in BB Can 8? You mean the season that was canceled?
Yes.
Yeah. So in my opinion, there was 3 or 4 people that were having a pretty solid game. Sheldon and Brooke were the front runners for me. Brooke in particular seemed to be in a point where, people knew she was tied with Sheldon, but I feel like she could have, with her other resources and the amount of relationships she was making, I thought Brooke was very high up on that list. Hira seemed to have things pretty well together as well. So for me, one of those 3, Sheldon, Brooke, or Hira, at that point was the front runner. We know the dynamics change all the time in the house, but in my opinion, they were the ones that seemed to be the most well branched off. And people saw them as a duo, particularly Sheldon and Brooke, but it wasn't to the point necessarily where everybody seemed like, okay, we got to like either use them as targets or we have to like split them up. They didn't seem too threatened by them, even though it was common knowledge. So Brooke for me was the number one.
Did they do Canada's favorite player at the end of the season? No. Oh, I always say Hira would have won it if they did.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, Joel, aside from himself, has played Big Brother with some of my favorite people, some of my biggest crushes. He got to, play with the Pax brothers. Oh my God, still love them. Still will always remember the teeth brushing. Favorite. Played with Cassandra, who, I love, and Mitch Moffat, ASAP. Science, popular, mega popular, amazing on YouTube and everything. You definitely got to play with some great Big Brother players, but now I have to ask. I know Nicole wanted to like pivot into, and we will, but I have to ask Joel, because Nicole and I are obviously on the TikTok. And we love a TikTok, and we love a dance craze on a TikTok. But my heart has been breaking for you a little bit, Joel, on the TikTok, because I feel like, are the Big Brother people not being nice to you, Joel? Who do I need to go talk to? Because
who you to beat up?
Who do we have to?
Well, that's like the one thing you're not allowed to do in Big Brother. There's like 2 things. You're not allowed to like plot to share the money, and you're not allowed to like actually physically touch anybody. So unfortunately we can't go that route.
We can't go that route. But no, I mean, your TikTok, I will say, for people that might not know or that might not have TikToks, it seems like some of yours lately have just been kind of saying like, I miss the Big Brother family, the Big Brother Canada family. I feel not included in the Big Brother Canada family, which, that makes me sad because,
very sad.
I look at all the Big Brother US people and I see them all as desperate fame whores. But then I look at the Big Brother Canada people and I'm like, you guys really are more like a family, or at least present that way. So it makes me sad when I see things like that. Why, is there nobody that you're close to from Big Brother Canada?
I would say I talk to Dallas once in a while because me and Dallas had a lot of similar interests. So Dallas and I talk. To be honest, most everybody else that I am in contact with, and we all have our own lives and busy schedules and whatnot. But realistically, it's kind of, for me anyways, become more of like a graduation. Once you graduate from school, people move on and go their separate ways and do their other things. And it's just been mostly just like birthdays. And if I see somebody posting something special, like they got married or had a kid or something like that, then I'll send them a congratulations. But yeah, it's not really more than that, if I'm truly being honest with you in terms of my relationships with other people. I don't harbor like ill will because I haven't really been like treated awful or anything like that by people. But I guess I'm a little disappointed because I don't know. You always, when you build such a strong friendship and relationship with people in there, you always you want to hang on to those things. And I'll say that I'm a very emotional person, and I take it. You saw me in the house. I take pretty much everything to heart. If somebody made a negative comment to me on the show on Twitter afterwards, it hit me. I'll admit it. So,
understandably though, that hurts.
Yeah. So if it comes off like too like heartbreaking or something like that, that's not necessarily my intention, but sometimes that's just how I'm feeling in that moment. And for me anyways, when I get comfortable with a certain environment or get comfortable with a certain people, I have a hard time just like latching away from that and letting that go, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think I'm the exact same way. And I think I've said this a lot during recent shows. Now that I am a year out of my season, it is a lot like graduating. You graduate high school, you have your people, but then some go away to school, some pursue different careers. And it's just like you appreciate them from afar, but they're still afar. And the same thing happens in like college or whatnot, the workplace, if you move to a different workplace. And I think I'm the same way as you with even like BB21. Like I came off that season like, doesn't matter, anything that happened, I am so close to all 15 of them. We are inseparable, all 15, that's it, point blank, period. When I left this house, I said to all of them, like, I want to be friendly with all 15 of you, like, I love you guys. And I think going back to that sense of like, it's like graduating, you start to realize like, oh, certain people, like your motives maybe don't line up, or what you seek to do in the world aren't in sync. So you just kind of like, I appreciate you from afar, or I observe you from afar, but you start to distance more.
Yeah. I mean, here would be my advice, Joel. And I mean, this is just the producer in me. I envision like you, like a McCrae, maybe.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I would love to see you with a Mitch Moffat, but I see you doing like Big Brother Canada commentary during a season where I feel like you offer a unique perspective into the game that I think people would, love to hear. I think we just have to figure out a way to make that happen for you, Joel, is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Even if it's just to join Nicole and I'm sure.
That was going to be my follow-up. My follow-up was going to be when we cover the next BB Can season, you're our guest and help us recap.
Yeah. Sure. Yes. Come on.
Nobody is excluded here in Hello Friends, and that like makes it excluded.
Well, there's a few people that are excluded.
Yeah, but not just because.
No, not just because. But I mean, I'm not like welcoming the devil in the back door. That's for sure too. So, but yeah, no. I think there are so many, as someone that knows your story and knows the things that you have gone through in your life outside of the game, outside of these things, I just think that you have such a way to reach people and speak to people and are compassionate about things that I just think more people need to hear. But I think for people like us, and I think that I'm a lot like you, Joel, I think if we don't necessarily have people pushing us into those things, that it's easy for us not to think that we should be doing them or that we deserve to be doing them and things like that. So I just want to, just tell you, I think that you're great, Joel. I think that you should be pursuing more things like that.
And I agree. You're very real, and real is good. Real is, I think, what I know relates to like most people and viewers and listeners and whatnot. And I think, people may be excluding, but maybe, look at who those people are and what those people are doing. And it's kind of maybe something you don't want to,
right.
If you certain people hang out with certain people, because, there's the whole social politics and influencing. And it's just sometimes it's not even worth it. Just do your thing.
And doing your thing can be lonely. I mean, doing your thing can also, you don't know that people don't perceive you focusing on your work or your family or the things that you're doing. Sometimes people perceive that as being standoffish or not wanting to help or not caring or not to do. And I mean, I hope that people would communicate when situations go like that, but it is sad because more times than not, I think you find out that people just perceive situations completely wrong. I see Lost says in the TV Code chat, emotionally connecting to people is natural. Bonding with those people is selective. If somebody wants to keep that bond, they need to make the effort to show they want to keep the bond. Sometimes people are not worth the emotion or the bond. And I think that's true too.
Yeah. I think from my perspective too, I'll just point out that and this is a mistake and something that I always fully own up to and admit to, because I like to think I'm a pretty authentic person. And, if I'm having a bad day and someone says, how's it going? I'll be like, it kind of sucks today. So I'm pretty like straightforward when it comes to that. But in terms of taking things to heart, I think a lot of it comes from a place of just always having a results-oriented mindset, which can be good. It can drive you, but it can also like lead to some super big letdowns. And it probably comes from playing club soccer and competitive sports at a very young age where winning was the only option sort of thing. And then I was in acting, and when you're an actor trying to make it, it's very much like Tommy can tell you, it's very much just like, all that matters is booking that gig, getting that call back. And if you don't get it, a lot of the work and the great stuff that you maybe did in that audition for that soccer tryout, whatever, can sometimes go out the window. So I will just say that not to defend myself, but to provide a little bit of clarity as to why I sometimes take things really hard to heart when you're in a competitive mindset where the only thing that matters is results. If you don't get that like huge result for something as silly as a tweet or for something for something like an audition, it can feel just like absolutely crushing.
Well, first of all, I hope that I didn't make you feel like you had to defend anything.
Not at all.
I want to tell everyone you are all allowed to feel how you want to feel. We are all human. Sure. Every one of us can feel the way that we all want to feel. I mean, unless your feelings are wrong, then its feelings are not facts.
No.
But no, we can all feel.
If you're the type of person that, like, when someone messages you and you say, like, oh, actually today was kind of shitty, I think that's very real and authentic. And if somebody responds to that with like, ooh, then I don't want to talk to you, then like they were saying in the chat, like that's not putting in effort, that's not caring. And then you don't want those people in your life anyway. Like you don't want people that are like, how's your day? Good. The weather's nice. Have a good day. Bye. Like that's not, So
to be fair,
question you. Goodbye.
To be fair, as somebody that talks for a living, those are exactly the people that I want in my life. Oh, I love when we can wrap up a conversation in 3 words. It is my favorite. It also doesn't help that I have Nicole around me all the time who asks 9,000 questions that makes me talk all day long. Like brief. Go ahead.
From being a former journalist myself, I know that I don't know if this is where it comes from for you, Eric, but when you're having like a taped interview with somebody and you ask them one question and they go on for like 5 minutes, you have to keep in mind you have to like put a certain amount of audio because audiences tune out. You can't put a clip of like 2 minutes of somebody talking in a radio spot. So you got to find like 10 seconds out of 5 minutes. That can be a nightmare for somebody to just like have to tweak that. So I mean, people's attention spans tune out. There's a reason why they teach you how to write something that is eye-catching to an audience, and speaking is the same thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think podcasts are a little bit different. I think people that are listening specifically to podcasts want the more in-depth conversations and they want the full scope of the conversation.
Social media soundbites.
Right. And I think social media, sure, then you break it up into that. But I know exactly what you're saying as far as theater goes. For me and somebody in radio and television production background, you're taught that like day one. You are only as good as your last show. So if your last show bombed, you bombed. If the last thing you produced bombed, then it bombed. And that is what you are taught. I don't ever like anything I do. I will find 15 things wrong with this podcast. Like that's just, it's always the way I've been. And I always have to fight, against it in a way.
When you said last show, I thought you meant like show. So I was like, oh crap, I went out second.
No. But Joel, here's what I think we should do. I think we need to challenge you to a TikTok trend.
Yes. Okay. You do like one of those like pass I can't say it, pass the brush.
Oh no. Nope. That is too easy. You are letting Joel get off way too easy. I want to see a full Joel with the there. We could do that one, whatever. But I want a full trend one, okay. Joel. We won't even make you pick the trend. But I'll say this, Joel. If you do it, then Nicole and I will duet it.
I love that.
Okay.
We'll do it. We need like a fun TikTok.
Wait, hold on.
What?
Do we have to do the predictable Carly Rae Jepsen?
No.
Because that's what everyone's going to look at for me.
Yes. Now.
But Joel, can you like dance? Because I can't dance. So don't do anything like crazy.
Nicole, if you haven't seen it, look up my clip of Carly Rae Jepsen and you can be the judge if I can dance or not.
Okay.
It is the gift. It is the gift that I used for this show on Twitter, Nicole. So you can look at it. That was his moment of listening to the HOH music on his season and dancing to Call Me Maybe.
I love that. Mine was Eminem, Slim Shady.
Here's the best thing. I try not to do ones when I have to dance alone, Joel. I have learned the trick where I'm always like, oh no, Nicole, people care about you. You stand in front. I completely realize it blocks half the screen. If you've ever noticed when you watch your TikToks, I've learned I only need to like be active on the part of me that sticks up above Nicole. So it's the best part. You don't have to. Now you're not going to have that. You're going to have to commit and go all in, Joel. But then Nicole and I will do it.
Yes.
Well, Nicole Slim Shady and Carly Rae Jepsen, I have a feeling that has the makings for, and I don't know why Glee hasn't done that, never did this, like some sort of a mashup of the two of them. That's like a perfect, those two go hand in hand, don't they?
They do.
I love that. What if it's like a TikTok where like you start off with Carly Rae and then I respond as Eminem? Is that possible?
I don't know.
Can you do that on TikTok?
I don't know if that is possible or not. It is Top Gun Phantom in TV Code Chat says it's Eminem's birthday today, so.
No, it's not.
Well, Top Gun Phantom, now Nicole's calling you a liar.
No, I didn't call him a liar. I thought his birthday was a few months ago. Oh, it is!
Okay.
Oh my gosh, we're in October.
October 17th. Yeah, that's today.
We are in October. We are October 17th. So I guess.
You know what's so funny? I have no idea where the last year went. I literally remember wishing him a happy birthday the other day. That other day was last year. I was in the car with my mom and dad going to a greenhouse to pick up flowers, and that was a year ago.
Wow. Well, we don't want this podcast to go on for a year ourselves. So, Joel.
Happy birthday, Eminem. I love you.
Happy birthday, Eminem. And Joel, what, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave with people, or anything that you want to say to people that are listening to this podcast right now?
I mean, I would say, I think Cody's going to win if you want my prediction for who's going to take the season. I know we didn't get too much into the show, but I feel like it's crazy that no one is even wanted to touch him the entire season when he was such a beast. So I give Cody all the props in the world, and I'm 100% all in on Cody winning. Other than that, just, thank you to everybody for being so, I feel like the Ian situation in particular, I was happy with the amount of response that was being shared in regards to that. And that to me gave me some encouragement that something like that wasn't just going to be a few disgruntled people, that it actually made enough headlines that other people were disappointed and outraged. And that gives me hope that there is a way that this kind of behavior can change in the future. So to all those people who listened and who responded and who had the kind of support for Ian like they did, thank you, and keep going along that route, because it's, like I've said before, it's a very important issue and the rights of people with disabilities is not talked about as much as it should be. So thank you for that, and keep moving forward with that.
Oh, I love that. And Joel, on that note, you said Cody as the winner. Who do you think is second, third, fourth, and AFP?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with Enzo second. I think Cody legitimately sees Enzo's loyalty and sees Enzo as that as a final two person that he could beat, and he can show the loyalty card and still win, as opposed to he couldn't win against Derek. I feel like Cody is winning against whoever is in the end. So I'll say second him. You know what? Enzo or Nicole is second or third. I'll say Enzo second, Nicole third. AFP, I don't know, because a lot of people haven't been very fond of the people that are in there. That's a tough one.
I can tell you,
if Cody doesn't win, I think it could be Cody. If not, I think Enzo, because Enzo, even though he hasn't done too much different, in my opinion, from Big Brother 12, except win a few more comps. I don't feel like throughout the entire season, Enzo's stock ever was super high or super down. It was kind of always trending upwards, and it never really declined at all. So I'll say they'll give it to Enzo, because I don't hear anybody saying, oh, Enzo's a scumbag, I don't want Enzo winning, or Enzo's played a terrible game. He hasn't played a super flashing game, but with all the unlikable characters this season, I feel like Enzo might get it.
I am so sorry to inform you, Joel. The correct answer was Devon. Now, Nicole, final thoughts?
I do agree with Nicole, A fan in the TVCO chat. Day, Ian, Enzo are my top three for AFP, and I agree. Yes. Those are the three. I'm voting for Devon, but it goes Devon, Ian, Enzo. I like them three as the top three.
And I will also say, and a lot of people have said this in the chat, but I'll take it from Lefty's Ambition, who says, someone with a disability, I thank you so much for sharing your story. And that, my friends, is why we did not get that much into Big Brother on this show, because it's a Hello Friends podcast, and you can watch our Big Brother recap shows to see more of what we think about Big Brother. But here, I try so hard to make us not talk about it. But no, we thank you so much, Joel, for sharing your story, giving us your insights. I know that Big Brother Canada is going to be back in the spring of next year with a much more diverse cast. We hope that you will come back and talk Big Brother with us then.
I would love to.
All righty. Tell people where they can find you on social media, Joel.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at JoelBBCan4, at JoelBBCan on Twitter, and then Facebook is just my name, Joel Lefevre, and yeah.
And TikTok, Joel?
And I should, because I don't post on TikTok very much, but it's easy to find out what my TikTok. It's the same thing as my Instagram, Joel BBCan4. There you go.
Oh, I was going to say we'll share it after he does his duet. Nicole, for real, final thoughts?
For real final thoughts, I knew this before having you on the show, but I have to reiterate it. You are an incredible human being who is very real and very authentic. And like the chat is saying, thank you for sharing your story and shedding light not only on your life, but also how everything is going down in the BB All-Star house. And we love you for it. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we hope that you guys will tune in to, back with us again tomorrow night. We are back doing our Hello Friends podcast on the weekends. Nicole, who's joining us tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Anne Heche is joining us at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Wow. And then on Monday, we have the creator of the BB Comics joining us. Tuesday.
Michael Borkowitz.
Yes, we're going to find out all about why he creates the comics and does them in the way that he does. Tuesday, I will be live with Steve Moses, where we go over live feed spoilers. Then on Wednesday, who's joining us, Nicole?
Todrick Hall.
Todrick Hall, I cannot wait. And then on Thursday, Nicole?
Our good old buddy Matt Eisman is joining us to talk Big Brother after the live episode.
So we have a great lineup for you guys the next few days. Make sure that you follow, subscribe, like, share, tell people about these shows. That is what helps keeping them going. Give a nice rating and review if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast provider. And we'll see you guys all on the next show. Bye, everybody.
Bye, friends.
Bye, guys.